Why do so many Russians support Vladimir Putin? This is a question that all of us have been pondering for decades now. And guys, as a Russian who's been outside of Russia for about 3 years now, I think I finally have an answer to the question. You can either watch the full video, we can make it quick, it's cope. It is copium. There you go guys, video's over, you can walk off. But if you guys want a little more than that, that's fine, you can stay. Because yes, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over the great Russian cope and the real reason why Russians support the government, even when the government goes against all of their interests. If you guys watch my channel, you probably already know my story by now. I'm a Russian who left Russia right after the start of the war with Ukraine. I didn't agree with what was going on, I thought the country is heading into a strange dark direction. And look, even though a lot of people may be quick to call me like a traitor of Russia or whatever, I think I've actually stayed pretty consistent in my beliefs so far, and one thing that I am noticing is that a lot of Russians are actually going through a lot of metamorphosis. They essentially become pro-government almost out of spite to themselves. Well, they think they're doing it to spite like the liptards, like me, the traitors of Russia, or like the West or whatever, but they're actually sabotaging themselves, their own beliefs, and their own life. I had a friend who literally left the country on the first day when the war started. He was like, this is crazy, it's gonna be terrible, this is insane, I cannot stand for this. The guy was like super pro-Ukraine and everything. And essentially a few years have passed since. The guy didn't manage to get like a visa to America or Europe, and he came back to Russia now, and now he's essentially Z and considers Vladimir Putin to be right about everything, because I guess he read some annoying comments on the internet, and also because he didn't get a visa. That makes a lot of sense. And this is happening to so many people right now in Russia that it's kind of actually insane. A lot of people are going through this like Z transformation where these are people who used to be anti-Putin, anti-war, and now just a few years later they're like completely switched up on all of their beliefs and worldviews and values. And once again, to put it simply, to put it short, the real reason why this happens is because these people really feel like they're powerless, like they're not affecting anything in the country, like their life doesn't matter. And so as a Russian, you essentially have two choices. You can either take the red pill and sort of become the anti-governmental Russian who actually understands what is going on in the country, who actually has strong values, and who believes that struggling against the government is worth it, or even speaking out against the government is worth it. And on the other hand, you can take the blue pill and essentially become Z, and you don't just get to be a part of this big, amazing, cool movement to restore Russia's, patriotism and might and glory or whatever, but you're also removed from all these bad thoughts that you get on this side, where you think, oh my god, Putin is actually succeeding and is doing well and the Russian opposition is actually not doing great. These people simply cannot bear these heavy thoughts, so they choose to be part of the Z movement, to feel a belonging to this great cause, and also to cope, to not feel like they have zero control of their life. And this is precisely why right now on the internet, if you go to like Instagram Reels or whatever, and you see some sort of like pro-Russian video or a video where there's like a war in the comments between Russians and Ukrainians, usually what Russians like to say, Z-Russians who support the war, they like to group themselves as part of the government. They like to say, it is good that we have finally started doing something about these Ukrainian Nazis. I am very, very proud as a Russian person that we have finally stood up and started doing something, that Russia is just so great right now. Or sometimes, for example, when you take a look in the comment section of a video of a person who left Russia, like a famous actor or a celebrity, who now speaks badly of the Russian government, usually the comments are like, yes, it is good that we finally kicked out all these liberals and traitors out of our country. It is time for us to really decide what is going on. Like, no.
We?
Who are you talking about right now? Like, are these people, are these us? Are these people in a room with you? Like, bro thinks he's on the team, okay? You're not on the team.
We?
There is no us, there is only them, okay? And you're not part of it. It's a big club and you're not in it. Why am I saying this? Well, because as a citizen of Russia, you have absolutely zero input on what is happening in the country. You have absolutely zero agency. You don't matter. Your voice doesn't matter. They never cared. They never will. You do not choose or decide anything that this country does, and you never have, and you never will. All these Z people, right? All these people like to say that, we have finally started doing something about it. The people have finally spoken or whatever. No, nobody has fucking spoken. Nobody asked you whether you want the war with Ukraine to start, okay? Nobody gave a fuck what you think. And this is precisely why when the war started, it was such a big surprise for everybody, because it's not like they asked for public opinion. It's not like there was a poll saying, do you want us to invade Ukraine or not? There you go, sign this petition, postal 2 if you want this to happen, right? No, that did not happen. You were not told of the plans, okay? You were not notified of what they're gonna do. They didn't consult you. It's not your opinion. It's manufactured consent that was put in your dumb fuck brain because you need a reason to cope and you need a reason to believe that there's a real truth and a reason why we're doing this. And there's a real reason why your rights and the future of your children is being destroyed, right? You want to believe that there's a true and decent reason. And Vladimir Putin is not just a madman who's, got insane with the amount of power that he has for 25 years in a row. You will not accept it. If you tell this to these people, they will not accept it. They need to believe that there's a good reason why their life is such a piece of shit. Why their life turned into such a fucking circus and it's so scary to live. And there's just no reason. So if you recognize that, your entire worldview shatters and your entire life is over. You cannot keep going like this. If you want to continue living with yourself, if you want to not go insane, you have to convince yourself that what is happening is somehow your will. It is somehow what you wanted to happen all along, actually. And if you do that, and if you convince yourself that you're part of this big Russian horde that's about to show Europe what for, whatever, life becomes a lot easier and a lot less painful. So that's it, folks. Russians who support the government like to think that they're on the same side as the government and that the people who disagree with them are the ones they're trying to eradicate and destroy, right? But they don't understand that themselves and the people that they hate are both in the exact same position, both absolutely irrelevant and powerless in the grand system. And what's funny is that in Russia, even if you're on the side of the system, even if you're inside of it, you can still get destroyed and just get thrown away at any point. For example, like Igor Strelkov, Igor Girkin. He was literally instrumental in starting Russia's conquest of Ukraine, and now he's in prison for being too outspoken and critical of the government. So and we all heard these stories of all these oil tycoons and bankers falling out of windows, right? Even if you're part of the club, you can still get destroyed and thrown out at any point. You do not matter whatsoever. And look, I'm not trying to say here that I have an extremely original idea that's never been thought of by anybody in this world. I think at this point it's kind of well studied, right, and well discussed, that people in authoritarian governments and authoritarian regimes under dictators, in a lot of these countries, you don't really get a choice. And you kind of have to put yourself inside this authoritarian system to continue living a normal life, to not go insane, to provide for your family, to be a normal member of society, in a society that is not very normal, right? And these people may come to these beliefs just to feel a belonging to the cause and to the overall, large population. Because everybody around is supporting this, right? There's no single Russian that doesn't support it. That's what the propaganda wants us to think. Oh, and I actually forgot to mention and elaborate on the main reason why a lot of Russians are sort of changing their beliefs right now and going from essentially being anti-war, anti-Putin, and anti-government to essentially going Z and supporting everything and being more patriotic than they've ever been in their entire life. And the reason is because there's a whole new resentment being built towards the West in Russia. You see, after the start of the war with Ukraine, Russia and the Russian citizens, as a result, were hit with a lot of sanctions from the West, a lot of restrictions and so on governmental level, on a level of online services. A lot of companies and brands left Russia, right? And there's a big amount of Russians right now, essentially, that are currently supporting the government, supporting everything that Putin is doing, once again, almost out of spite to the West. There's a huge amount of Russians who feel like they are not responsible for what happens. A lot of them who even kind of sided with the West on a lot of these issues, who kind of never supported Russia's entire policy. These people kind of expected the West to recognize that not all Russians support the governments and that not everybody is insane, right? And a lot of Russians who even supported the West, they changed their opinion because a lot of this punishment that is coming from the West, Western governments, Western companies, and so on, it's something that was felt by all Russian citizens, regardless of their political beliefs and views and so on. And once again, in my opinion, and I've talked about this on this channel a lot, these kinds of feelings and this kind of reaction from some Russian people, I do think they had these feelings rightfully so, right? There were a lot of measures that still don't really make sense to me. For example, Visa and MasterCard pulling out of Russia. What happened is that Russians could no longer use their Visa and MasterCard cards outside of Russia, which I guess just made it literally just made it harder for people who disagree with the Russian government to leave Russia. And also made things worse for Russians who have already left Russia and live abroad. And it didn't affect the Russian economy in any way. A lot of Russians also like to point out the hypocrisy with which Russians are treated in this kind of situation. Essentially saying, all these companies are leaving Russia, but where was this kind of attitude when America was conducting this special military operation in Iraq? Or for example, why is it that all these huge companies are not leaving the state of Israel and there's no sanctions that will be put on the state of Israel and its citizens, right? And I actually think that these questions and these statements are more or less valid. And it's normal to see this hypocrisy and to be disappointed by it, and to be heartbroken by it, and to even feel betrayed by it, right? But, once again, that does not mean that your response to all of this, the entire situation in the world, should be, okay, fuck you guys, I'm Z now. No. I don't think the response to that should be, okay, now I understand that Vladimir Putin is doing everything correct. He was right all along, by the way. Now I'm more patriotic than ever. I'm ZV Goida. And just because you now realize that these Western governments don't really have your interests in mind, does not mean that now you should think that the Russian government has your interests in mind. Because like I said in this video, they never did and they never will. But that is most people's reaction at this point. Like, human beings are very emotional creatures. Not everybody has to be politically correct and consider the optics of their beliefs. And honestly, to me, as somebody who broke out of the system a little bit in a sense, looking at how this war and, everything that is going on is affecting people that I know personally who used to be normal and are now just completely insane, I can see this kind of effect with my very own eyes, right? And honestly, guys, I don't think there's like any way to fight this other than removing yourself from that society. And myself, if I wasn't like a YouTuber, if I didn't have these opportunities to travel and, be around here in Europe right now, I would have probably not had the money to move out of Russia, and I would have probably had to stay in Russia, and maybe I would have also had to swallow the blue pill to a certain degree, right? And also have these slightly low-key Z beliefs just to kind of feel okay with myself and what is going on and to not fucking lose it. I mean, I don't know, guys. It's really hard to tell, honestly, but once again, looking at good people that I know going Z right now, I'm kind of looking at this whole thing and I'm like, yeah, man, nobody's safe from this bullshit. And the reason is, once again, like, you have to cope. Being a Russian these days who doesn't support the Russian government is kind of a bit of an awkward position to be in, especially if you live in Russia. I mean, if you live in Russia, it's actually like heartbreaking. You will go insane, right? You will be depressed. There's no way around it. And once again, for a lot of people, it's just way, way easier to cope, to become ultra patriotic and once again scream around on every corner about how it's great that we are doing this, that we have decided to start this special military operation or whatever, that we are kicking the West's ass right now, whatever, right?
We?
Once again, no. You are not on the team, you never were on the team, you don't decide anything, you're a peasant, you're a cog in the system. So am I, by the way. I'm not saying this to put you down, just fucking realize it, and then, that is the first step, okay? That's how we build a good society that understands their place and has class consciousness and awareness of whatever the fuck is going on. In Russia, that is a big, big problem because people, honestly, a lot of them are barely in contact with reality, okay? They live in delusion. Because the entire Russian society right now is one collective delusion. And I wanted to talk about this because honestly I believe it's an important message, and it's actually something that people probably can relate to a lot right now in America, for example. In America, you almost have kind of a similar situation, Putin supporters and MAGA, they're really like two sides of the same coin almost in how people operate. The tariffs are saying the economy is sinking, everything is gonna get even more expensive, like pretty much everything that's being done is just awful for, the common person, the working person in America. And once again, for a lot of people, it's way easier to become this kind of MAGA caricature that's about owning the libs 24/7, like he doesn't live for anything else. And once again, even though their life expectancy, their standard of life, everything is going down the shitter, instead of realizing the problem in the corrupt politicians and the billionaires and everything, they will just hate on their common folk. They're gonna hate on the woke, the libtards or whatever, minorities, right? They will just hate the common person next to them, fight the culture war, and then suffer as a result of their dumbassery, right? This is kind of what is happening in Russia, and it's really, really fucking sad. Because once again, it's easy to be based, red-pilled, owning the libs, owning the soy boys, saying MAGA, Trump, whatever. That is way easier and nicer and more fun to do than being, a soy boy libtard who's crying about the fact that Kamala didn't win or whatever, right? Who is losing. Yes, it's not cool to be a libtard right now. Doesn't mean you have to join the fascists though, you know what I'm saying? And once again, the same logic applies to America as it does in Russia. If Russians just realize that these people don't care about them, they don't have their interests in mind, they don't care if they lived or died, they're just numbers, which are there to, drive the shareholder value up or whatever. If people just realize that their neighbors, just regular ass people, are not their enemy, and are not the ones who are creating all of these problems, maybe that would be the good first step to take, but I guess I'm too optimistic about human beings, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little rant. I thought it would be fun to do, and it's, you know, a thought that I've had for a while now, kind of wanted to put out there in the video form. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you want to support me additionally, and that is financially, go over to the link down in the description, become a YouTube member, or donate to me on Buy Me a Coffee. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.